This is Sam Andrews. He is a former counter sniper and sniper trainer, and we have him on Lake Ozark Real State of the Art Studios on Dam Radio. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Sam, and some of your history there, and then we'll get into. You contacted me on Facebook and asked if you could call in and talk about this. You and I have talked about you were in Ferguson and had a big instrumental part of what happened during the Ferguson riot. So I'll let you go. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me, Ike. I grew up a printer's son, went to engineering school, got a degree in physics, a degree in mechanical engineering. Career-wise, I worked as a contractor for the government, did some things for some of the agencies, worked with Major General Hollingsworth and Admiral Hall on special projects for the federal government after 9/11. Been working in the small arms and ballistics field for almost 40 years. I've developed weapons technology used by the Secret Service, worked with the Secret Service back when Bill O'Rourke was the head of the Presidential Counter Sniper Protection Detail, developed a 300 Win Mag round for them, shooting a 200 grain powdered tungsten round, 2,875 feet a second. That gave their snipers an effective range of 1,200 meters. And worked on a number of other small arms technologies for Dev Group, SEAL Team 6, SEAL Team 5. A number of higher speed Tier 1 assets have used things that I've developed as an engineer. I now own a training facility in Lebanon, Missouri. We have a 1,000-yard range. We have a football field surrounded by 18 feet of dirt. We call the Coliseum Range. We train special forces and SWAT teams and civilians in a 360-degree threat environment there. It's a neat place to train. It's a blessing to have a facility like that to transfer knowledge with.
Wow, that's fascinating. I knew for a long time now, and sadly I've not been able to make it down to you. But I need to. I really need to, especially with all this new stuff. I knew you had a good long-range shooting plan and range, but with all these other things, I've definitely got to take time to come down and see you.
Well, the Freedom Center range, I have an interest in two companies, Tier 1 Weapon Systems and Freedom Center USA. You can go to the website freedomtrain.net. And I should have a schedule up for the fall here in the next 3 to 4 days. But you can go to that website and check out the range pictures. There's even some pictures of custom weapons we built. There's some pictures of some 3,000-yard sniper weapon systems that I've developed. It's an interesting place to browse through. But we do training in 4 different areas. We do it in preparation. We do it in combat skills. We do it in long-range precision shooting skills, and we also do some climbing and some nav stuff. So there's a lot to be had there for people that want to improve or learn. We have Navy SEAL instructors, we have MARSOC Marines, we have intelligence agents, assets, and we even have one civilian instructor that can outshoot all my Navy SEAL instructors. So you've got a lot of talent there if you want to learn.
Sounds fantastic. You know, I do a little reloading and I like to do a little shooting, but I just never realized, I mean, so shooting and precision shooting, long range shooting, I mean, you can get as crazy with it as you want, reloading. I don't even have half of the mathematical skills it would take for me to do that precision type of reloading and shooting and whatnot. But I'd like to learn a little more about it, and we'll see if we can take some time to come down and see you someday. So you had contacted me on Facebook, and so we have now seen for several days a lot of different things going on with this assassination attempt on former President Trump. And there's an incredible amount, as anyone would probably understand, of what I believe is probably misinformation. There's an awful lot of redirecting. And right now there's an awful lot of blame on everybody but those who should probably be responsible for all this. So if you want to get us into where you see all of this sort of thing, and with your expertise, what do you think's going on here? What were really the points that were missed? What should they have done? And what do you think about the excuses they're coming out with now?
Well, on the obvious side, the director of the Secret Service now, Cheadle, she's a absolute incompetent buffoon, and her communication about this incident has been sparse and absurd on many occasions over the last couple of days. They've tried to blame local law enforcement. But I got to tell you, what happens, a lot of people aren't familiar with the technical side of this, but when a president, vice president, speaker of the House, a presidential candidate, when they travel to a public event, there's an advance team from the Secret Service that goes and investigates the site. Of course, they're looking for bombs, they're looking for vantage points for snipers, they're looking for a whole array of things that could be threats to the VIP that's going to be there in a few days. Sure. And so you start with the advance team's work, and there were major advance team failures with the Secret Service advance team at the event that Trump almost died at. And then you get the team come in, and a lot of people don't realize this, but the Secret Service doesn't have 40,000 men like the FBI or 180,000 like the Department of Homeland Security. The Secret Service is traditionally under the Treasury Department, which is now under the Department of Homeland Security. So, their human assets are relatively limited in numbers. And back in the day when Bill O'Rourke ran the Counter Sniper Protection Detail Team, they were men. There were no women. They were all amazing marksmen. They were all super skilled, highly trained, dedicated, apolitical men that were professional and just did their job. And I worked with those guys. I don't know if you remember years ago when they had the debates at Wash U in St. Louis, Missouri. But they had a bunch of candidates in for the debate, plus a vice president was visiting at nearly in the same time frame. And so they had a shortage of assets. And so they allied with Bill Cooney and Jerome Clipful, these guys that ran the St. Louis Metropolitan PD SWAT team. And Jerome called me and he said, Sam, have you got any equipment? I need SR-25s. I need semi-auto sniper rifles. I need range-finding binoculars. I mean, can you help me out? Mm-hmm. And I said, sure. And then he said, will you come down and look at the lay of the land here on the debate and give us your assessment on sniper positions? And see, that sort of alliance type thing happens at a lot of events that the Secret Service is involved with. Now, they come in and they declare that area a national security area. Mm. And what that does functionally under the laws, it suspends all local laws. Mm. When you go to a Trump rally or you go to a presidential debate or you go to hear a president speak, that area that you walk into is a national security area. You have no rights. There's no laws that protect you. It's whatever the Secret Service wants.
Well, I mean,
they are like the captain of a ship.
Sure, and that makes some sense. And if you're going to go in there involuntarily, then you need to know that you're going to be under those auspices and those rules. So, yeah, that makes sense to me. Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, and with that power, unfortunately for Cheadle, also comes tremendous responsibility.
Absolutely.
And the buck stops with her on the assassination attempt of Trump. Now, what typically happens is you'll position 6 sniper teams in and around that area, and you will command a radius larger than 1,200 meters. So you're literally covering a 1-mile circle. That's the capability of those Secret Service snipers.
So
they'll also ally with local SWAT snipers. Mm-hmm. Now, we had at Trump's event, we had 32 Secret Service agents. We had 30 deputy sheriffs, including a SWAT team, and we had 50, that's 50, PSPs, Pennsylvania State Police officers, in that area. Now, I can tell you unequivocally, if you give me 4 men, 2 sniper teams, the shot that was taken at Trump never gets taken.
Mm-hmm.
Not only does he not get off 7 shots, he doesn't get off 1 shot. So something went really, really wrong. And because of the layers of security, the advance work, the perimeters, the counter sniper teams, the inner detail we call the diamond guys, they're the guys that are surrounding Trump's body when necessary. And then you have the short perimeter, you have the medium cordon, and then you have the long cordon that the counter snipers cover the outer fringes of. Now, that building was only 100, in the front of the building was about 137 yards from where Trump was standing. The back of the building was about 157 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And so that shooter, when he crawled up towards the peak of the roof, was approximately 145 yards away. Now, there is no way in hell with any counter sniper guys doing their jobs that a man out of uniform with no comms crawls on a roof with a rifle, spends over 2 minutes up there, and then takes 7 shots before he's eliminated. You know, there's been a lot of hoax material on the internet about green light and denied permissions and all this stuff, but that's not how it works. When we train counter snipers in the Secret Service personal protection environment, there is no green light. The officers operate under the use of force laws of the United States. In other words, if they see a legitimate threat in the present, they can use lethal force to eliminate the threat. Now, what defines a legitimate threat? Means, opportunity, and intent. Those are the 3 parameters that we train snipers with on what actually needs to be necessary for you to employ lethal force. There's no green light or permission from management or the sergeant or the commander or the head of the secret. That does not exist in that environment. And it never will, because it wouldn't work.
No, well, let's back up for just a couple of minutes, because I'm a novice shooter, you're a pro. And there's a lot of different folks listening here, and we throw these distances around. 1,200 meters being a secured area, a 1,200 meter shot, you really kind of, I mean, you need to know what you're doing. But at 150 yards, I mean, I can hit you at 150 yards, I promise. So,
let's talk about that.
It bothers me.
There's 80 million. Yeah. There's 80 million men in the United States that can shoot the head of a person from 140 yards. Basically, anyone who knows how to get in position and hold a rifle reasonably steady can make that shot from 140 yards in a no-wind condition.
Right.
And we're going to talk about the wind, hopefully, before this is over, because there's been a lot of misinformation on why Trump's still alive. And the real answer is the wind, and I'll get into the technicalities of that if you're interested.
Yeah, because the 223 bullet is a very light bullet, traveling very fast, and can be thrown off target pretty quickly. But yeah, we can get into that a little bit later, because I have a question about something.
Sure.
Well, and just in that, I don't want to throw you. We'll get into that a little bit later. But go ahead and on with your thoughts, sir.
Well, so you have an inner cordon, an outer cordon, and a medium cordon, a medium range cordon, and then you have the 5-6 guys that are responsible to form a diamond around the VIP. So in case he's shot at, they're screening him with their bodies, and they hustle him to a vehicle. Now, they should have had Trump in that vehicle in less than 15 seconds. That's the standard, for a vehicle at that distance. But they stood him up and left him out in the open for over a minute and a half.
That is.
I mean, that was horrible.
That was fascinating. Do you think Donald Trump had anything to do with that, because he wanted to do the fist bump, and people are trying to say he said wait a minute or something? Do you got any knowledge?
Well,
he
said wait a minute on several occasions. He wanted to get his shoes, and he wanted to get his balance, and he didn't want to look like a buffoon falling off the stage.
But he's not in charge right then and there, is he? I mean,
no,
I know he's
in charge.
Exactly.
They should have gotten under both arms and carried him, and had the rest of the team surrounding them as they moved to the vehicle. They said, "Sir, it's time to go," and we go. That's how you do it.
Right. Now
you're not asking permission from Donald Trump to stuff him in that up armored SUV.
Right, exactly. So now when he was on the ground for a little while, he ducked when he got hit. And is it procedure for them to go ahead and check the body to see if there are? Because I know when he got back up, he didn't have his tie on anymore. He was disheveled. It looks like maybe the agents really looked him over and checked him out to see if he'd been hit otherwise. Is that normal? Is that standard?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So what a lot of people don't know is that red, white, and blue barricade, that patriotic-looking barricade,
Bulletproof.
that's about 3.5 feet tall in front of the podium. That barricade is ballistic material. It's designed to stop a bullet, and we train the president to drop to the ground if there's any shots fired.
Perfect. Okay.
So Trump did what he was trained to do,
Good.
and then the Secret Service agents did what they were trained to do. That one guy got to him in less than a second and a half and covered him.
Yeah, he
that
did.
was great reaction. And a second guy was there not even half a second later. So those two guys did their jobs. At least at that portion, they had done perfectly what they were designed to do. The counter sniper teams, although have a lot to answer for, the advanced people have a lot to answer for, and the manager inside the Secret Service that took Trump's 4 main Secret Service guys off his detail for that night and sent him to an event that Kamala Harris was involved in. That, to me, is really, really sketchy. It's those kinds of things that demand a thorough, independent investigation. By the way, the FBI should not be involved with. They have a major conflict of interest. They've been trying to throw Trump in jail for 7 years.
Absolutely. That's exactly right, man. I wouldn't trust the FBI looking up after that stuff if I was Donald Trump, for sure.
Well, the FBI should have recused themselves as an agency because of their conflicts of interest. Of course, they didn't. They immediately put out communiques to gather all the evidence so they could control the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to happen. They're going to be a part of it. I mean, what makes you think? And I get into it a lot, but they've been trying to do under Donald Trump for, like you said, 7 years. Why would they stop now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're not going to stop.
Right.
And that's the thing that Trump needs to realize. The Secret Service cannot, and the FBI cannot be involved in his security. Trump will be dead. He won't make it till the election, much less be around for his inauguration. And, Trump has the money. Trump is partly to blame for this problem, because Trump has the money to provide his own security. And he did for a long time on the first campaign. You remember back in 2015, 2016? The Secret Service worked with Trump's security. And Trump had better get rid of all of these Secret Service security people, get rid of all the FBI people, and start hiring CAG operators, CAG sergeants, and master chiefs from SEAL teams that are known patriots.
Would they still
that
have
are
that
on his side?
Would they then still have that same authority to cordon off that area and call it a national security event because they're not actual national law enforcement? Would you maybe keep, maybe those couple of guys that did their good job that work for the Secret Service, maybe you find a couple that can do it and then they have that authority, or how's that work?
Boss of the Secret Service, Cheeto's not going to let them do that. But you know what? How well did having a national security area defined work for Trump last Saturday night?
There you go. Right.
That's not the important. The important part is nobody gets a free shot at our president.
There you go.
That's the important part. We got to keep the guy alive. And by the way, Trump campaigned on a mission to drain the swamp in 2015 and 2016. He hired Reince Priebus as his first chief of staff, one of the biggest swamp monsters in history.
Right.
Okay, so Trump did not do what he campaigned on. He kept some campaign promises, but he didn't keep the important one, and it's the swamp that is trying to destroy him. His own failure to keep his campaign promises almost brought about his death and destruction. And so Trump's got to get a lot smarter. And I have long recommended that Trump immediately replace the director of the U.S. Marshals with his own guy and have the director of the U.S. Marshals deputized SEAL Team 6
Okay.
and deputized a couple of units out of Fort Bragg, which they now call Fort whatever.
Yeah.
I don't call it that. But
Right.
it'll always be Fort Bragg to me.
Right.
But the bottom line is, and then have them go to the 7th floor of the FBI and the Secret Service and the CIA and clean house and confiscate their computers, their cell phones, and arrest these leaders that are corrupt as all get up, and then go right over to the Department of Justice and do the same thing. Because unless Trump cleans up the swamp, he won't be alive 3 months after he's inaugurated.
I know there's an awful lot of people worried about what might happen this fall, and certainly, because look, there hasn't been a lot of these Antifa things and all this other garbage going on during the Biden administration, but a dadgum sure was going on during the Trump administration, and we can talk about those philosophies, but and why they might be doing that, but take us back to that scene and what these counter snipers weren't doing, what they should have been doing. And how do you even think this, short of an absolutely a coordinated attempt on Donald Trump's life, how do you think this all came about? I mean, and how did we get here? Where are we today?
Well, there's a layer of mistakes. There's mistakes in each layer of the security plan. So the advanced guy made a huge mistake by not extending the national security area out further than he did, which would have included the plastics manufacturer that the shot was taken from.
Right.
There's mistakes in the positioning of the counter snipers. Nobody in the media has even talked about this, but there's a water tower 160 yards to the east of that building. It's 5 times taller than those buildings, and it has a perfectly stable catwalk. And the first position for a counter sniper team would have been on that catwalk.
Sure, they want the highest spot.
It would have given them overwatch over all those buildings.
Wow.
And the second problem is you had, apparently, from my law enforcement sources, they're telling me that we had 2 counter sniper teams that were Secret Service teams, and we had 2 counter sniper teams that were SWAT snipers. And
local
for
SWAT
some
snipers.
reason, local SWAT, that county SWAT snipers.
Okay.
And now I can't verify whether they were the county snipers or the highway patrol, the Pennsylvania State Police snipers, but they were local to Pennsylvania sniper teams.
Sure.
So you had 4 teams total. The media has only talked about the positioning of 2 of the teams. And so the biggest faux pas that I see is, why wasn't there a counter sniper team on the water tower? Because they would have seen the guy crawling up the back of the building coming up the ladder.
Wow.
From that position.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the lay of the land, okay? And I'll tell you why Trump's still alive. It's not because he turned his head. The lay of the land is, if you go down to the plastics building, the ground level of that building is at 1,335 feet. The peak of the building is 18 feet tall. Okay? So you add 18 feet to that number, and you get approximate height of the shooter.
Okay.
Add a foot to that, and you get almost the exact height of the shooter. Okay? Now, Trump is on ground that is 1,352 feet high. Okay? So it's 17 feet higher than the ground the building's on. Now there's a 5-foot stage on top of that, and his ear is 5.5 feet above the stage. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's this guy with a 5.56 shooting a 55 grain bullet from a position that is functionally 8 feet lower than Trump's ear.
Okay.
Now, did you see the picture, the photograph of the bullet going past behind Trump's head?
Yeah, and I've tried to explain to folks that you really can see the vapor trail of a bullet traveling.
Not the vapor trail.
Yeah.
It's not the vapor trail. It's the actual bullet with a slow shutter speed.
That's crazy.
So that trail of the bullet, the light reflected with that slow shutter speed, is about 12 inches long.
Yes.
But you can see the vapor trail, but that's not the vapor trail. That's the actual bullet.
Okay.
That is not the bullet that penetrated Trump's ear. That's the second shot.
Wow.
Trump's hands were on the podium when the first shot hit his ear. He reached up to his ear, And before his hand got to his ear, the second shot passed him about 2 inches lower than the first on the same side of his head and did not hit him. Now, here's the problem I have with that evidence. If you look at a level stage, and it's level, and you look at the angle of descent of that bullet, it's right at 2 degrees. Now, if you understand angular measurement, you know that a minute of angle is 1/60th of 1 degree. A 5.56 bullet, if fired from the same elevation as Trump's ear, not slightly below, but from the same elevation, would only be descending at a 3-minute angle. That's 1/20th of 1 degree. So here we are with a photograph that was either faked and photoshopped, or there was a shooter significantly farther away than the guy on the roof.
Wow.
And nobody has talked about this. Do you know what 2 degrees is in minutes?
Ain't much.
120 minutes. That's 2 degrees. That bullet should only be going at a down angle of 3 minutes, and for all practical purposes, it should look dead level, flying past the president.
You know what I found very fascinating now that you bring all these things up is, and I pray for the family of the individual that was murdered. But if this shooter is the only one, and he was shooting at Donald Trump, even a nervous shooter that probably knows he's about to die, or certainly his adrenaline is going crazy. But how do you, I mean, I have missed a target, rapid fire of an AR, a semi-automatic weapon, but it's not that far off. How in the world do you go from barely missing Donald Trump and then killing a gentleman that was in the bleachers? I don't know. You tell me how far behind that guy was. And then another individual in the bleachers got hit.
Well, the bleachers, there were 3 people hit other than Trump. The bleachers behind Trump were not the bleachers of the victims.
That's where all the blood is.
So if you look at Trump, let me give you the lay of the land. Trump is facing dead west. The sun is shining on him, the setting sun. He's facing dead west, okay? There's bleachers behind Donald Trump to the east of him. No one was shot in those bleachers. And there were bleachers to the left of him to the south. That's where the victims were. And bleachers to the right of him to the north. And then everybody out to the west of him was in folding chairs facing him on the ground. Okay? The guys that were shot in the bleachers were shot multiple rows up in the south bleacher.
Okay.
And they were the bullets that barely missed Trump.
Wow. I guess this is an optical illusion. It looked to me like from where that camera was on Donald Trump, and then I saw some footage afterwards with what I would presume were Pennsylvania Highway Patrol. That kind of looked like, and the bleacher was there. I mean, just full of empty. There were no body, people there anymore. It was just full of blood. So that kind of made me wonder. But
yeah, that was the south bleacher that had the blood on it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Okay.
So what's fascinating is nobody's talking about the win, which is the only reason Trump is alive. If you look at the video and watch the small flags to the left of the east bleacher as you're looking at Trump, our left, Trump's right, you see the wind gusting from 7, 5, 7, 12, 15 miles an hour. You remember the big flag above Trump and that iconic picture with his fist in the air?
Sure.
That is a giant flag hanging from a crane, and the wind is strong enough to blow that thing out straight, almost level above his head.
Yeah.
And so what we have here is a 12 to 15 mile an hour wind and a 55 grain bullet fired around 3,000 feet per second out of an AR-15.
Right.
Well, guess what the wind drift is at 150 yards for a 15 mile an hour wind with a 55 grain FMJ bullet?
I'll guess an inch.
3.1 inches.
Wow.
And that is almost exactly the distance from the center of Trump's face to his ear. I don't think that's a coincidence. The average head, and snipers study these things, the average head is 5 inches wide and 8 inches from the chin to the hairline. We know these things because we range people knowing those dimensions with our reticles, right? And we're trained on those things. So we know Trump's head is about 5 inches wide or 2.5 inches from center. And that bullet hit his ear, which was probably less than half an inch from the side of his head. I don't think it's a coincidence that the wind drift for a bullet from that position and is exactly the same as the amount of the bullet drifted from the center of Trump's head, which is very interesting because what it tells me is if the shooter on the roof was the guy that a conspiracy picked to make this happen, they picked the wrong guy because he had no ability to call the wind whatsoever.
You know, I'm getting up to the top of my normal hour here, but I know the owner of this outfit, Lake Ozark Real State-of-the-Art Studio, damradio.com. And if you want to keep going, my friend, we're going to go past my 7 o'clock hour top. There's nobody following this. And you just have some incredibly fantastic information that I think people need to continue to listen to. So if you'd like to continue on, just keep rocking it, sir.
For another 10 or 15 minutes.
Whatever you want to do, my friend. The air is yours.
So you hear on the news that that if Trump hadn't turned his head to the right, he'd be dead.
Right.
Well, I hate to inform these morons on the national news, but your spine runs up the back of your head. It connects to the back.
Right.
So when you turn your head to the right, your head doesn't move forward at all. The bullet missed him on that side. He was turning his head towards the bullet. And the fact is he was facing right for a number of seconds. So I'm pretty sure the guy had the crosshairs dead center between his eyes with perfect elevation on the shot. And the wind blew that bullet 3 inches right and saved Trump's life. Call it providence, call it God and the hand of God on the wind, whatever you want to call it. But I would bet my house on the fact that Trump is alive because of the wind drift and that kid's inability to call the wind, or the other shooter that might be involved inability to call the wind. But I either suspect either that photo was photoshopped or there had to be a shooter 400 to 600 yards away to achieve that kind of down angle on the trajectory.
Wow. Friends, we're talking with Sam Andrews. He is a former counter sniper, a sniper trainer. He has trained folks with various government agencies and national defense folks. We're talking about the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump, and I'm pretty confident that you're not hearing anything like this anywhere in the national media. The only place you're going to hear this is on damradio.com at Lake of the Ozark Real State-of-the-Art Studio. And Sam, if you'd like to continue on, as we said, why, yeah. So do we again? We know there were a lot of different problems with how this all happened. I've even heard a report that this kid allegedly walked across town with a rifle and 50 rounds of ammunition and a ladder, and nobody said nothing. How do you even... So, I mean, it comes back to your entire, not theory, but your entire reality that this was a security failure from the top all the way down to the very bottom, and it seems like just about everybody did not do their job.
Yeah, it's pretty hard for me to imagine that 110 officers allowed a man with a rifle with no uniform, no comm equipment, no team patch onto a rooftop for 2 minutes and then allowed him to take 7 shots at the next president of the United States. I can't believe it. It's unconscionable. The level of ineptitude or corruption is beyond anything a normal, good human being could manage. A counter sniper in my world that I trained would never allow that to happen. It would be impossible for something like that to happen. I was a little troubled when I saw the video of the counter sniper on the roof. The moment the first shot was taken, he physically recoiled and started to duck rather than stay in his scope and do his job.
Wow.
And so I have some real problems with what's going on, and I got to tell you, heads need to roll on this. I mean, Trump's got to get rid of that was a major security failure at every level.
Yeah.
And I know there were some heroic people that jumped out to cover Trump, and I don't want to disparage those guys because they did their job initially. But leaving Trump out in the open with his chest and head exposed for 2 minutes instead of picking him up and dragging him that vehicle and throwing his shoes in on top of him, it's inexcusable what they did.
Yeah,
If
because
there had been a planned attack with multiple shooters, Trump would be dead.
yeah, because they did. They stood him right up there after they checked him out and make sure he wasn't hit anywhere else. They did. They stood him up when he did the whole fist bump thing. And you're right. If there was a shooter from the other side, he'd have been gone. They'd have got him right then and there.
And where were the ballistic shields and ballistic blankets that they could have walked into the truck with at 2.5 minutes? If you're going to keep him behind that barricade covered and go get some ballistic shields and some blankets, I understand that. What I don't understand is standing him up for 2 minutes and putting some midget in front of him, leaving his heart, his lungs, his neck, and his head exposed. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know any of this stuff like you do, but even I, a complete novice at all this, when he was just standing around, I mean, again, as we said at the very beginning of this, when you're in that situation, Donald Trump might be in charge until that happens. And at that point, Donald Trump does what he's told to do. And if he doesn't do what he's told to do, like you said, they grab him up, they drag him, they carry him, whatever they got to do, and they throw him. I remember seeing, the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. And those guys just simply put his head down and shoved him in the limo. There wasn't any questions. There wasn't anything. They just moved.
That's exactly right. Ronnie, you don't have a choice in this. In you go.
That's right.
And that's how we train them to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's how it's done. But when you take Trump's normal Secret Service detail and you task them out somewhere else,
yeah,
and then you have these kinds of faux pas, and especially a guy on the rifle, out of uniform, no comms, no anything,
and you had,
and he's up there for two. There's so many mistakes, and you don't have a team on the water tower. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and there were civilians wandering around on the grounds just saying, hey, there's a guy up there, and it looks like he's got a gun. And, I mean, to me, like you said, if I'm thinking, and I don't know the rules, but it makes sense to me, just like you said, if I'm the counter sniper and I see this guy on the roof, he's not one of yours, it almost doesn't matter whether he actually can see a rifle. He's not supposed to be there. And at a bare minimum, you definitely get on your comms and say, hey, go check this guy out. If you don't, go ahead and see it as a threat and pull the trigger.
Well, let's talk about means, opportunity, and intent. When a guy crawls onto the roof and he has a rifle in his possession, he has the means to hurt Trump. Okay? When he's 140 yards away, he has the opportunity. He's 140 yards away with clear sight on the president. Now he has opportunity. When he shoulders the rifle, he expresses intent. And those are the three elements that a sniper needs to justify the use of lethal force and give him the obligatory cranial vault dispersion.
Wow. Yeah. So they've got I think this bank of TVs in front of me here, and Blaze Network has a real good overhead of that area, and now I can really see what you were talking about, a way that I have not really seen that, and how the buildings are in position with how the bleachers were lined up and where Donald Trump. So if everybody that's been listening to this interview, if you go back and look at that aerial shot, Sam has absolutely laid it out exactly how things went, and I think that this is just fascinating that you have this information, and I really appreciate your perspective. It saddens me really that we are at this point that, I've talked about it on the radio before, I'm sure you have and others, and we're just at this point where who and what in the world can we trust? And I cannot. We've had some issues here with the ATF in Camden County, and we told them to go pound sand. So I just don't trust any of those guys, Sam. I just don't trust them. I don't trust the FBI. I don't trust, I guess I can't even trust the doggone Secret Service anymore.
Well, I could tell you this. You remember Ferguson, Ike? You
Sure,
remember
yes.
the riots in
Sure, yes,
Ferguson
sir.
at
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanksgiving of 2014?
Yeah.
They did $70 million worth of arson damage
Yeah.
to the town of Ferguson, which is in a suburb of St. Louis.
Yeah.
Now, I had a highway patrol sniper in one of my training classes a few years ago, and he was there in Ferguson, and he told me that the Department of Justice, basically Valerie Jarrett, her crony, came down into a meeting and told the Missouri Highway Patrol SWAT guys that they needed to shoot my men guarding buildings and businesses in Ferguson. They told the Highway Patrol to assassinate me and my men.
Wow.
You know what the Highway Patrol told them? We're not starting a fight with those guys. They got more experience than we do, and they've got better weapons and a lot more ammo. You're crazy if you think we're going to start a gunfight with them. So if you have any doubt about how corrupt these federal agencies are and your federal government is, stop it. They're so far corrupt beyond your imagination. You wouldn't believe it if you knew the truth. You'd be shocked.
Wow. Well, Sam,
now,
go ahead.
You know what worries me? What worries me the most? It's not the towers coming down. It's not the president's life being terminated by a sniper that worries me. That's not a threat to freedom. What's a threat to freedom is our response to those events. And notice how all the conservative news agencies and the liberal ones are all saying the same thing. We need to turn down the rhetoric, right? What they're doing is they're laying the groundwork for taking away your free speech.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with Biden saying we need to put Trump in the bullseye. There's nothing wrong with that. That's free speech. He's not threatening Trump. He doesn't have means, opportunity, intent. Those are just words.
Right.
He could say that all he wants. Now, you crawl on a roof with a rifle, we got a whole different problem.
Sure.
But if you let them take away your free speech, or what I think is actually going on is they're trying to lay a framework into the American people's mind of an age of political violence.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, when they kill Biden, they could say, oh, it was a Trump supporter. We've got political violence run wild. We need to take these guns away.
Yeah.
The people that want Trump dead need Biden dead more than they need Trump dead.
Wow.
If they kill Trump, they make a martyr out of him and his son becomes president. But if they harass Trump or almost kill Trump, or kill Trump and then kill Biden and set up a Trump supporter as a patsy, they take over.
Wow.
They change the narrative and they take control almost immediately. With 60% of Americans going, okay.
Yeah, that's the scary part, isn't it? Scary part.
See, it's the response to these terrible events that bother me. And then now I want to say one more thing, and then I'll let you go.
No, yeah.
We have over 500 shootings a year inside of federal prisons because people sneak guns into a federal prison. Now think about this. You're in a national security area in western Pennsylvania. You've got 110 cops crawling all over a very small area. And a guy crawls on a building and gets off 7 shots at the president.
Right.
Now think about that for a second.
Yeah.
So when they take away your rights, in lieu of handing you security as a gift, the gift is a lie. The gift is vaporware. The gift is a Trojan horse. There's no such thing as security. There are no guarantees. There are risks to life.
Right.
So when these people scare the American people, these criminals scare the American people, and they offer them security with lip service in lieu of their Bill of Rights, in lieu of their God-given rights.
Right.
It's a myth. It's vaporware. Why are we letting them spy on our cell phones and spy on our emails and spy on our computers if they can't even stop a 20-year-old nut from taking pot shots at the leader of the free world?
Man, I tell you what, I'm really glad that you contacted me and wanted to do this evening. I want to have you on again sometime and talk about other things. Not only is your expertise fantastic, but I think that philosophically we are aligned very, very similarly. And I started this show talking about the fact that it's our responsibility. Men, it is your responsibility to protect your family. Law enforcement just can't do it. Nobody else is going to do it. Men, it is your responsibility to protect your family, however you have to do that. And I would also say something to every single veteran out there. I served 8 years. In 1985, I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, not to defend the United States, not to defend the people here, not to defend Missouri, but to defend the Constitution, because the Constitution of the United States is the basic framework that we have that sets up our government, ensures our God-given rights are to not be infringed. But if we as men and women do not stand up and exercise our rights, they will be taken from us, they are being taken from us, and we must defend our families. Sam, thank you so much for your time, my friend, and we will do this again, and just what do you have for a parting shot, sir?
Well, thank you, Ike. If you're interested in learning how to handle a weapon like a SEAL team operator, you can give me a call at 417-718-2597. We are putting classes together for this fall, and you can give me a call. We'll get you slotted in the right class. And I thank you for everything you do, Ike, and thank you for getting involved. And God bless you, and God bless this country, and let freedom ring, brother.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you so much, Sam. Bye-bye. And there he goes. Folks, this is recorded. We got it done right this time. We didn't get the first show recorded, but before KB left, he got this show recorded. JR, I know you're listening out there. We need to get this thing, put back in the loop once or twice. I think this is probably one of the most fascinating interviews I've ever been a part of, maybe even one of the most fascinating that I've ever heard. Join us next Wednesday. I didn't get into much of anything I wanted to talk about, but this is all right. The information we got here this evening was just incredible. And thank you so much for listening to Radio Free Missouri on damradio.com, Lake of the Ozark, a real state-of-the-art studio. And we're going to join, if I can figure out how to do this, a little bit of music. Thank you, folks, for your time. And remember, it's all your responsibility.